I used to think nothing bad could happen on a night filled with Christmas lights. Maybe that's why I ignored all the little signs earlier that day. The weird silence in the woods, the way the dog kept whining at the tree line, the distant echo of something heavy moving through the snow. I chalked it all up to mountain life. New noises, new wildlife, new home. We'd moved into the place just a week before Christmas. A 2-story cabin built right into the ridge above Boulder, perched high enough that clouds sometimes drifted below us. Emily, my wife, loved it instantly. Said the mountains made her feel calm, grounded. Our kids, Lily and Thomas, were obsessed with the loft bedroom they shared. "It's like sleeping in the sky," Thomas said. On December 23rd, we spent the whole evening unpacking holiday boxes, hanging stockings, baking far too many cookies, and letting the kids decorate the tree however they wanted. By the time we tucked them into bed, the whole house smelled like cinnamon and pine. I remember lying beside Emily later thinking, this is it. This is the kind of Christmas I always wanted growing up. I fell asleep fast. When I jolted awake at 3:09 a.m., it took me a moment to understand what I was hearing. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Footsteps. Heavy ones. On wood. But our bedroom was on the second floor. The balcony wrapping around the outside wall. The balcony no one should have been able to reach without a ladder. Emily stirred beside me. "Did you hear that?" Just then, another crunch echoed outside the sliding glass doors. Someone, or something, was standing on our balcony, and they weren't trying to be quiet. I slid out of bed slowly, trying not to make the mattress shift. My heart pounded loud enough I was sure whoever was out there could hear it. I crept toward the curtains, keeping to the shadows, telling myself it was just an animal. A mountain lion maybe, a big one, but mountain lions don't wear masks. When I pulled back a sliver of curtain, cold air leaked through the glass, and so did my breath. A figure stood inches from me on the balcony. Tall. Too tall. Its shoulders hunched forward in a way that didn't look natural. It wore a tattered reindeer mask, the kind you'd see in some dusty Christmas play from 30 years ago. Painted eyes faded, nose cracked, antlers chipped. The thing leaned closer until its mask pressed against the sliding door, fogging the glass with long, slow breaths. I stumbled backward. Emily whispered, "What is it?" I shook my head. Don't look." Before either of us could move, another sound rose from downstairs. Drawers opening, cupboards banging, ornaments clinking together like someone rummaging through everything we owned. And then, God help me, a humming sound drifted upward. A soft, tuneless hum, like a person absent-mindedly singing to themselves. Emily grabbed my arm. The kids. I heard footsteps below us. Deliberate. Slow. Someone was walking through the living room. I peeked again through the curtain. The reindeer-masked figure was still there, meaning the person downstairs wasn't the same one. We had at least 2 intruders in the house. My only thought was to get between them and my children before either one of those humming strangers could reach their rooms. I crept down the stairs, one step at a time, every muscle tense and shaking. Emily stayed by the kids' door upstairs, ready to grab them if things went bad. I whispered up to her, "Lock the door behind me." She nodded, eyes wide. The humming grew louder as I descended, slow and wandering, like whoever was downstairs didn't care if they were heard. I reached the bottom step and froze. Our Christmas tree, our perfect, messy, kid-decorated tree, was stripped bare. Every ornament we'd hung was gone, the branches naked and trembling in the draft. Then I saw them. All the ornaments had been arranged in the middle of the living room floor in a perfect spiral. Not scattered, not dropped, arranged, carefully, deliberately. Boot prints, muddy and melting, circled around the spiral like someone had paced around it again and again, admiring their work. "What do you want?" I whispered into the darkness. The humming stopped instantly. My breath froze. My body locked up. A voice, low, rough, like someone who almost never used their vocal cords, answered from somewhere behind the kitchen island. "Pretty things." My stomach dropped. I glanced toward the hallway leading to the kids' room. More boot prints, fresh ones, leading straight toward the stairs. The intruder wasn't in the kitchen anymore. He was moving toward my family. "Emily," I hissed. "Take the kids to the bathroom. Lock yourselves in." I sprinted up the stairs 2 at a time. The floorboards creaked behind me. He was climbing too. Then a sharp tap hit the window at the landing. I whipped around. The reindeer mask was pressed against the glass again. They were climbing the balcony railing. We were surrounded. I reached the top of the stairs just as Emily opened the kids' door. She had Lily in one arm and Thomas half asleep against her shoulder. "They heard it," she whispered. "They're scared. We need to go. Now." Behind us, the heavy steps on the stairs grew louder, each one deliberate, like whoever was climbing wanted us to hear every pound of their boots. Emily hurried the kids into the upstairs bathroom. I shut the door behind us and locked it. The small room felt even smaller with all 4 of us inside. The window above the tub was our only possible exit. Emily whispered, "Do you think we can fit out of it?" "We don't have a choice." I climbed into the tub and pushed the window open. Cold air clawed inside. The drop wasn't far. Snowdrifts piled high below, but it was still risky. A thud hit the bathroom door, then another, then another. The humming returned, this time right outside the door, low and playful, like a child humming a Christmas tune wrong on purpose. "Go," I said. Emily lifted Lily through first. I helped Thomas next. Emily climbed out after them, slipping into the snow with a soft grunt. Another slam hit the door. I turned back once. The wood was starting to crack. I swung my legs through the window just as the door splintered inward. I didn't look. I didn't want to see what was behind it. We landed hard in the snow. Emily grabbed the kids. I grabbed her. And we ran barefoot through the drifts toward the neighbor's distant porch light, praying we made it before the intruders came outside. Deputies filled the yard within minutes of us pounding on the neighbor's door. The kids cried in their arms. Emily shook so hard I thought she might faint. I could barely talk. Kept staring back at the house, expecting to see one of those masked figures step out of the darkness. Inside, the officers found the spiral of ornaments. They found the muddy boot prints. They found the balcony railing bent slightly, like someone had climbed it from below. But they never found the intruders. "Probably a couple of thrill-seeking weirdos," the deputy said. "Squatters. People like that pass through the mountains all the time." I shook my head. They weren't drunk kids. They moved like they knew the house. One of them was on the balcony outside our bedroom. No ladder, no tracks leading up to it. The deputy tried to reassure me, but he couldn't explain the prints, the spiral, or the humming. They placed patrol cars on our road for several nights. But whoever, or whatever, came into our home never returned. We moved out in January. Sold the place fast, didn't look back. I still hear the humming sometimes, drifting through my dreams. And every Christmas since, I find myself staring at the tree long after everyone else has gone to bed, watching the glass ornaments sway like something unseen just brushed past them. Living up there, we thought we were isolated, in a peaceful way. But isolation can attract the wrong kind of attention. And some visitors aren't looking for help. They're looking for homes with lights off, doors unlocked, and families too asleep to notice when the balcony creaks at 3:09 a.m. Long before any of this, I used to think I was the kind of person who handled being alone well. My name is Leah Hayes, and growing up in a small Pennsylvania town, solitude was practically a rite of passage. My parents worked long shifts, I was an only child, and our house sat at the end of a cul-de-sac bordered by woods. Silence was familiar, even comforting. So when my parents decided to spend Christmas week in Ohio visiting my great aunt, I practically shoved them out the door. At 17, the idea of having the entire house to myself felt like some unofficial step into adulthood. December 23rd started normally enough, the kind of winter day where the sky looked like cold porcelain and the snow fell lazy and slow. I made cocoa, wrapped myself in an old Steelers blanket, and sank into the couch ready to binge whatever random Christmas movies came on. It was one of those evenings where the world feels muted, like sound itself is softened by snow. That's why I heard it so clearly. The faint, unmistakable sound of fingers brushing across the blinds in the living room. At first I tried to rationalize it. Maybe a branch scraped the window. Maybe the heater rattled the frame. But when I stood and pulled the blinds aside, my breath caught halfway up my throat. There, smeared on the inside of the glass, was a single fingerprint. Fresh, pressed low, like someone had leaned in close. I backed away from the window, heart thumping in my neck. The house settled and creaked like it always did, but now every sound felt intentional. I told myself I was imagining things. I had locked every door, checked every window. There was no way anyone was inside. But that belief didn't last long, because somewhere behind me, down the hallway that led to the guest rooms, I heard the soft, deliberate sound of footsteps. I froze, knife still. The footsteps weren't heavy or rushed. They were slow, careful, like someone didn't want to be heard but wasn't trying quite hard enough. The kind of steps you make when you assume someone is asleep or unaware. My first instinct was denial. I whispered, "Mom?" Even though I knew she was 3 states away. The footsteps paused, then continued. My pulse hammered in my ears so loud I almost didn't hear the faint click of a door shifting in its frame down the hall. Every horror movie I had ever watched suddenly felt like preparation I had never wanted. Still wrapped in my blanket, I backed toward the kitchen. My mind raced through every possibility. Maybe someone broke in earlier. Maybe they'd been hiding. The thought made me swallow hard enough to hurt. Just then the lights flickered. Once. Twice. The TV, which I had turned off, flashed on by itself. At first, just static. The fuzzy snowstorm kind that buzzes in an empty room. But then the picture shifted. It wasn't a channel. It was a camera feed. And it was my hallway. The exact hallway where the footsteps had come from. The feed was shaky, like someone held the camera at shoulder height. I could see the back of a person's jacket at the edge of the frame. They were filming inside my house. The blanket dropped from my shoulders as my hands went ice cold. Okay, think, I whispered to myself. The kitchen drawer clattered when I yanked it open. My fingers wrapped around the handle of the biggest knife we owned. Just as I backed away from the counter, a soft sound echoed from the stairs. Not footsteps this time, just a single, heavy drip. A wet sound. When I turned toward the staircase, my stomach flipped. There were boot prints climbing upward. Wet ones, fresh ones, leading to the second floor before I ever moved a single step. Panic must have some kind of gravity, because in that moment it felt like the entire world compressed around my chest. I stepped backward until my shoulder hit the pantry door. My mind pasted together a blur of terrifying possibilities. Whoever was upstairs had gotten in before I noticed. Maybe while I was making cocoa. Maybe earlier. Maybe they had been hiding for hours. The thought was almost unbearable. The wet boot prints were spaced close together, deliberate. The person wasn't running, just walking casually, confidently, like they knew the house. That realization chilled me more than the draft slipping through the stairwell. I took a shaky breath and whispered, "I can make it out the back door. Just go. Just move." But before I could even reach for the lock, a voice drifted down from upstairs. Low, male, calm. The kind of tone you use when you're talking to someone you believe is already listening. "You weren't supposed to be alone tonight." My knees buckled slightly. I clutched the knife harder, forcing myself to stay upright. "Who's there?" I yelled, though my voice cracked embarrassingly. No response, just silence. Then, another wet step, this time on the landing. I backed toward the living room, but the TV feed shifted again, showing a new angle. The camera now pointed at the staircase, at the boot prints, at me. That meant he wasn't filming from upstairs anymore. He was filming from somewhere else entirely. The thought made the room tilt a little. The floorboards above groaned as if someone leaned their full weight over my bedroom. My heart banged so hard against my sternum I felt lightheaded. I made the decision then. Run. Just run. I bolted up the stairs despite every instinct screaming at me not to go toward the source of the danger. I reached the top step and stopped dead. There were more boot prints waiting for me, not leading away, facing me. For a moment, the world narrowed to the shape of those boot prints. Perfect impressions of heavy work boots, each one darker at the heel as if soaked through. They weren't mine. They weren't my dad's. They weren't from anyone who belonged in this house. The prints led straight into my bedroom, my sanctuary, the one place I always felt safe. I swallowed hard. "I'm calling the police," I shouted, though my hands trembled so badly I nearly dropped the knife. Before I could unlock my phone, a faint beep echoed from inside my room, followed by a small click, then another. Someone was closing my dresser drawers. "Stop," I whispered, though I knew the person couldn't hear. Or worse, maybe he could. I stepped backward down the hall as quietly as possible. But old houses have no mercy. The floor creaked under my weight, and the rustle inside my room went silent. Then, slow and steady, the shadow of a person's shoulder appeared in the doorway. "Leah," the voice said gently, too gently. "Don't run." Every muscle in my body rejected the idea. I bolted into the bathroom and slammed the door, locking it with shaking hands. I pressed myself against the far wall, chest heaving. Something brushed against the other side of the bathroom door, a hand. Then the voice leaned close, muffled but unmistakably smiling. "I've been watching the house for days. Your dad leaves at the same time every morning. Your mom checks the door twice but forgets the deadbolt. And you?" A quiet chuckle. "You never close your blinds all the way." My skin crawled. The sound of metal scraping against the door echoed through the small bathroom. He was trying the lock. My phone buzzed in my hand, maybe a text alert, maybe anything, but I didn't dare look. I screamed as the lock snapped. The door flew open so fast it smacked the wall and bounced. I raised the knife, hands shaking uncontrollably. The man stood silhouetted against the hall light. A heavy coat, soaked boots, a knit hat pulled low. His face was mostly shadow, but I could see his grin. Wide. Too wide. He took one step into the bathroom. "You should put that down," he murmured, nodding toward the knife. "You don't want to get hurt." "You broke into my house," I snapped, my voice more desperate than brave. "The police are coming." He tilted his head. "Are they?" I seized the moment he hesitated. I ducked past him with every ounce of speed I had. He grabbed the back of my sweatshirt, but I twisted, the fabric tearing as I ripped free. I barreled down the stairs, nearly slipping on the last step. I sprinted to the front door, fingers scrambling over the locks. Behind me, his boots thundered down the steps. The door flew open just as he lunged. I stumbled outside, screaming into the freezing night. Snow whipped across my face. A porch light flicked on across the street. Then another. A neighbor's voice called out. The man froze, eyes darting to the houses waking up around us. With a frustrated exhale, he turned and disappeared into the woods behind my house, vanishing into the darkness like he'd never been there at all. The police showed up minutes later. I told them everything. Every sound, every boot print, every word he said. They searched the woods but found only melted patches where someone had stood recently. They never found him. My parents rushed home the next morning. I haven't spent a night alone since. But the fingerprint on the inside of the window? It's still there. I never wiped it away. a reminder that safety is something much more fragile than I ever understood. People always assumed the graveyard shift at a 24-hour Holiday Mart was lonely, but honestly, it used to be my favorite part of the job. I liked the quiet. I liked the way the store hummed with that low fluorescent buzz, like it was half asleep but still keeping me company. And I liked working Christmas week too. Everyone else wanted the early shifts so they could go home to families, but I never minded filling in. After my dad passed, holidays just felt like another kind of silence, and working kept me from sitting in that empty apartment thinking too much. That Christmas week started like any other. Drunks staggered through around midnight, buying cheap beer and frozen pizza. College kids stopped in for energy drinks before driving back to parents' houses they didn't want to stay in too long. I rang them up, made my usual small talk, and watched the snow drift lazily across the parking lot. But around 2:30 a.m., the store went unusually still. Not just quiet, still. Most nights there was always something moving. The cooler fans switching on, the heater rattling, the automatic doors sliding open for some stray gust of wind. But suddenly, I felt like the whole building had taken a deep breath and forgotten how to exhale. I tried brushing it off, tapping my pen against the counter, humming an off-key version of Silent Night. Anything to break the weird tension. But my skin prickled like someone was standing right behind me. When I turned around, nothing was there except the candy displays and a cardboard snowman with a fading smile. I told myself I was tired, that I needed more caffeine, that the graveyard shift was finally getting to me. But then the clock read 2:47 a.m., and everything changed. At 2:47 a.m., the automatic doors hissed open. No footsteps, no winter air rushing in, no customer stepping across the gray welcome mat. Just the doors, opening. Probably a sensor glitch, I muttered, though my voice sounded thin even to me. I grabbed my refillable coffee cup and walked around the counter to check the entryway. The motion-triggered Santa, this 4-foot plastic monster corporate insisted we display every December, suddenly sprang to life. Its head jerked, its speaker crackled, and then it let out that warped recording, "Ho, ho, ho." I jumped so hard I sloshed coffee down my sleeve. The Santa wasn't even facing the doors. It shouldn't have been activated. I nudged it with my foot, and the whole thing powered down again like nothing had happened. That's when I noticed the silence again. Not normal silence. It was the kind that presses on your ears, like being underwater. Even the freezers had stopped humming. I went back to the counter and checked the security monitor, mostly to prove to myself I wasn't imagining things. The screen flickered, lines bending and twisting, before finally stabilizing. Aisle 3 showed a dark shape moving between the shelves. Aisle 7 showed another, tall, flickering, like it wasn't entirely attached to the floor. Aisle 10 showed something crouched low, too long-limbed to be human. But the store itself was empty. I could see all the aisles from where I stood. The air was still. Nothing was moving. "Hello?" I called, even though my gut screamed not to. My voice echoed down the aisles and died before it reached the back of the store. The figure in aisle 3 suddenly stopped, turned, and began drifting toward the camera, toward me. I backed up, heart hammering, and then its face filled the screen. A stretched grin, hollow eyes, skin like wet paper. I froze. Something in the store was moving, and it wasn't on the aisles I could see. The lights in aisle 1 snapped off. A loud click, like a breaker being thrown, echoed through the store. I spun around, staring into the sudden darkness swallowing the front row of shelves. A second later, aisle 2, click. Aisle 3, click. Aisle 4, click. Each one died like a countdown, moving toward me in steady, deliberate rows. "Nope. Nope, nope, nope," I whispered, backing toward the stockroom. I grabbed the walkie off my belt and pressed the button. "Carl, if this is you messing with me again, I swear. Static. Just static." Then something scraped along the floor behind me. Not footsteps, dragging. Like something too tall or too broken trying to pull itself forward. I bolted. Ran past the refrigerators, past the ATM, past the Santa still leaning crookedly against a display of discount wrapping paper. The lights in the aisles behind me were snapping off faster now, like whatever was there didn't need to walk. They could just decide where darkness belonged. I shoved through the stockroom door and slammed the lock into place. For a moment it was a relief. The familiar smell of cardboard boxes and cleaning supplies grounded me. I fumbled for the light switch. The stockroom lights came on, but dimmer than they should have been, like something was draining the power. Then I saw it. On the employee whiteboard, where we usually wrote reminders like restock milk or clean bathrooms, someone had written a new message. In thick red marker, only one more name to check off tonight. Below it was a list of employee names. Most were crossed out in quick, heavy strokes. The only name left uncrossed was mine. Jenna. My knees nearly buckled. I grabbed the edge of a shelf to steady myself. Someone had been in here. Someone who knew my name. Someone who had been close enough to write this while I stood out front thinking I was alone. Then I heard the stockroom door handle rattle. Whatever was outside had found me. The door handle turned slowly, too slowly. Not like someone trying to open it, but like someone savoring the sound it made. I stepped back, holding a box cutter in one hand. Yeah, I knew it wouldn't help, but holding something felt better than holding nothing. "Who's there?" I called, forcing my voice not to crack. The door stopped rattling. Then came 3 slow knocks. Not asking knocks, claiming knocks. I backed up farther until I hit the metal shelving. "Jenna," a voice whispered through the door, but the voice didn't sound like a person. It was layered, like several whispers stacked together. My stomach twisted. I needed a way out. The back emergency exit was on the far side of the stockroom. If I ran for it, I might make it out to the parking lot, call for help, do anything other than stand here waiting. I grabbed my keys, shoved them in my pocket, and sprinted. Behind me, the door slammed open. The thing didn't step inside. It spilled into the room. Too thin, too tall, joints bending wrong. Its limbs hung like wet ropes, dragging across the concrete. Its grin stretched wider than a jaw should go. I dove behind a stack of soda crates. My breath puffed in sharp, shaky clouds. "Jenna, last one," it whispered again. It moved closer, long fingers brushing the tops of boxes, sniffing like it could smell me. I clamped a hand over my mouth. A crash. Something collapsed on the far side of the room. It lunged toward the sound, giving me the moment I needed. I sprinted again, straight toward the emergency exit door. I punched the bar and stumbled out into the freezing night. The alarm shrieked behind me, but so did the creature. I didn't look back. I just ran toward the dim glow of the highway. I reached the edge of the parking lot, lungs burning, snow slicing at my face like needles. I could hear it behind me, its limbs slapping the pavement, too fast for something so misshapen. The only car in the lot was mine. "Come on, come on," I gasped, jamming my frozen fingers into my pocket. I fumbled the keys twice before hitting the button. The car chirped. I threw myself inside, slammed the door, and hit the lock. The creature stopped right outside my window. Even through the frost, I could see its shape. Tall, hollow, stretching its face toward the glass like it was learning how to smile by watching me panic. I turned the engine over. It sputtered. "Not now," I begged. The creature dragged its hand across the window. The frost melted beneath its touch, revealing its empty eyes staring directly into mine. The engine coughed and caught. I threw the car into reverse and floored it. The tires skidded in the snow before gripping. The creature lurched toward the car, fingers scraping the metal as I sped out of the lot. I didn't stop driving until I reached the next town. I pulled into a gas station, an actual one, full of people, warm lights, normal noises, and sat there shaking until someone tapped on my window. "You okay, miss?" the clerk asked. I nodded, though the lie felt heavy. "Just long night." I didn't go back to Holiday Mart. Quit the next day. Told my manager there was a break-in, which technically wasn't wrong. Police checked the cameras, but all the feeds between 2:40 and 3:15 a.m. were static. The whiteboard message was gone, every name erased, including mine. I don't work nights anymore, and around Christmas every automatic door still makes my blood run cold. People assume wildlife photography is peaceful, all soft sunrises and patient waiting. What they never see are the nights spent sleeping in frozen trucks, the meals eaten half defrosted, or the storms that roll in so fast you barely have time to zip your jacket. I guess that's part of why I kept doing it. I liked the uncertainty. I liked feeling small in places big enough to swallow me whole. In December of last year, I came to the Montana backcountry chasing a wolf pack, rumored to roam the high ridges near Glacier County. My editor thought I was crazy going alone, but I'd been doing this long enough to trust my instincts. The plan was simple. Hike up to an old fire lookout tower, spend 2 nights there, and capture the kind of winter shots that make people forget how uncomfortable the cold can really be. The hike went smoothly. The tower was exactly where the map said it would be, perched on a narrow ridge like a birdhouse dropped by some careless giant. I checked the forecast. Moderate snow, nothing serious. I'd ridden out worse. By sundown the first night, the wind started howling hard enough to vibrate the floorboards. I radioed base camp. "Storm's picking up," I said. "You're good for the night," they replied. "Should clear by morning." I believed them. Around midnight, the storm cracked open like the sky had snapped in half. Snow slammed against the tower in thick waves. The window frames shuddered, bending inward before springing back like they were breathing under pressure. I paced, checked the radio again. Nothing but static. My throat tightened, but I told myself it was just one bad night. It wasn't. It was only the beginning. By the next morning, the lower level of the tower was gone, buried. Only the top cabin where I slept was still above the snow line. I opened the hatch to the staircase and stared into a wall of packed white. "Great," I muttered. "Real great, Dana." I tried the radio again. Still dead. The batteries had frozen overnight, and the emergency crank unit barely sputtered. I held it against my jacket for warmth, hoping body heat would coax it to life. No luck. By day 2, the temperature inside had dropped below freezing. My breath fogged in thick plumes. I wrapped myself in my sleeping bag, then 2 blankets, then my parka on top. Even then, the cold pushed through every layer like needles. My water froze. My food tins felt like rocks. I had to heat everything with the tiny camp stove, but its fuel dwindled fast. I tried to ration, but the cold chewed up calories like firewood. Speaking of firewood, there was none. So I burned the leg of the table, then the chair, then parts of the storage shelf. The fire crackled weakly in the tin stove, throwing just enough warmth to keep my fingers from turning numb. Every time the flames died, the cold rushed in again, eager, like it had been waiting right outside the heat's reach. The wind battered the tower, not in gusts, continuously, like a living thing trying to get inside. Sometimes it hit so hard the windows bowed inward, flexing like thin ribs. "Hold together," I whispered to the cabin. "Just hold together a little longer." That second night, I thought I heard someone calling my name through the storm. "Donna." But when I pressed my ear to the glass, the voice dissolved back into the screaming wind. By day 3, I'd stopped trusting my sense of time. The storm swallowed night and day alike, turning everything into a constant, glowing white. I slept in short bursts, waking every hour to feed the fire with something else I regretted burning. When the last piece of furniture was gone, I had no choice. I had to go outside if I wanted to survive another night. The storm had eased just enough that I could see maybe 20 feet. I stuffed my pockets with protein bars, then dug my way out through the emergency hatch on the leeward side of the tower. My body shook so violently from the cold that my teeth ached. I climbed onto the snow-packed platform and scanned the ridge. Nothing but swirling white in every direction. Just grab the gear bag, I told myself. I'd left it under the tower when I first arrived. Stupid, I know, but I hadn't expected the storm of the century. I trudged through the deep snow, slipping every few steps. My breathing sounded too loud, too close. The wind felt like fingers pressing against my back. Then I saw them. Footprints. A full circle of them. All the way around the tower. Fresh. Sharp-edged. At first I thought, okay, those are mine. I walked around a lot last night, checking the structure, pacing. But the problem was, I hadn't gone outside. Not once. And the prints weren't boot prints. The shape was wrong. Barefoot. Toes long and splayed wide like something meant to grip the snow instead of sink into it. I felt eyes on me. I whipped my head toward the tree line. A shadow stood between two pines, tall, unmoving, facing the tower. "Hello?" I yelled, even though dread leaked into my voice. The figure didn't move. I blinked. It vanished. I scrambled back up into the tower, heart slamming like it was trying to escape my chest. I shut the hatch, shoved the metal bar across it, and pressed my back to the wall. My breath came out in sharp bursts. "You're tired," I whispered. "You're hallucinating. Cold does that." But the storm had changed. It wasn't just wind now. It was voices, low, scraping, twisting through the cracks in the window frames. "Why did you come here? Dana, don't sleep. Been waiting." I clapped my hands over my ears. The voices didn't stop. They just moved inside my head instead of outside it. On the fifth night, I saw the shadow again. It stood below my window, barely visible through the storm glare. I leaned close, trying to see if it was a rescuer, a hiker, anyone human. Its head tilted up. Not like a person, more like something sniffing the air. My breath froze halfway out of my lungs. I whispered, "Please go away." Its outline wavered, and then melted back into the trees. I didn't sleep after that. Every time my eyes drooped, a sharp whisper hissed right beside my ear. "Don't. Look. Away." At one point, I thought I saw my father standing in the corner of the cabin. He'd died 5 years earlier. He looked wrong. Too thin, too tall. His face stretched like the figure outside. I blinked and he vanished. By day 7, I had burned almost everything, including parts of my coat lining. My fingers were numb. My thoughts felt distant. That morning, I finally crawled to the window and looked down at the snow. The spiral tracks encircled the tower again. Barefoot. Fresh. And they stopped directly beneath my window. They found me on the afternoon of the 7th day. Half conscious. Frostbitten. Curled up against the stove's cold metal shell like a dog trying to stay warm against a dead machine. I barely remember the rescue team entering the tower. I do remember one of them shouting, "She's alive! Get the stretcher!" Voices blurred in and out. Hands lifted me. A warm blanket wrapped around my shoulders. Someone held my wrist, checking my pulse. Someone else kept repeating, "Stay with us, Dana. You're okay now." But I wasn't okay. As they carried me out, I craned my head toward the snow. "Look," I rasped. "The tracks. They're right there. Do you see them?" A man with a thick beard glanced down. Then he shook his head. "Those are yours," he said gently. "You were wandering in circles. Happens in storms like this." I wanted to argue, to scream, to insist, but my voice wouldn't rise above a whisper. "They weren't mine. The toes. The shape." "No," he insisted, tightening the blanket. "You were confused. Severely hypothermic. It messes with your mind. They loaded me onto the snowcat. As it rumbled down the ridge, I stared out the frosted window at the tower shrinking behind us. Wind whipped around it, curling in spirals. And just before the tower vanished from sight, I saw it. A tall shadow standing at the edge of the tree line, facing me, unmoving, watching. "Stop," I croaked. "Stop." But the engine drowned me out, and the figure dissolved into white. Months later, after the doctors cleared me, after the nightmares softened, after my editor offered me a desk job far from any mountain, sometimes I still hear the storm when I close my eyes. It whispers memories back at me like knives. The storm almost killed me, but what lived inside it wanted me long before I arrived. Respect the wilderness, respect your limits, and never assume the only danger out there is the one you can see. The mind breaks long before the body does, and something in the dark is always ready to take advantage of the cracks. Before I understood what real fear felt like, I used to laugh at people who said malls creeped them out during the holidays. My name is Olivia Parker, and at 32 I thought I'd pretty much seen the worst life could hand me. Divorce, bills stacking up, parenting alone, juggling 2 jobs. Nothing scared me more than failing my son, Evan. But December 21st changed what I thought danger looked like. I worked a long shift at the credit union that day. It was one of those gray, icy evenings where the sky felt too close. I picked Evan up from my sister's place, and he begged me to take him to the mall to look for Christmas toys. I caved, mostly because I felt guilty for being late again. The mall was jam-packed. Holiday music blared, kids screamed, shoppers elbowed past each other with giant bags. I held Evan's hand tight as we navigated through the crowd toward the toy store. I remember thinking it felt almost festive. Then I saw him. A tall man in a long red coat, bright red leather gloves. He stood near the entrance of the store, still as a mannequin. At first, I thought nothing of it. People wear weird outfits during the holidays. But when we switched aisles, I caught him again. Standing at the far end, hands clasped, staring down the row. No cart, no bags, no expression. I muttered, probably just waiting for someone, and tried to ignore it. But the longer I shopped, the more I noticed something impossible. No matter which aisle we moved into, he was already there, and he never blinked. I tried to shrug it off. Malls are crowded, people wander, but something about him made my instinct tighten like a knot in my stomach. I cleared my throat, grabbed a Nerf set Evan pointed at and said, "Let's hurry, buddy." Evan giggled and ran a few steps ahead, stopping at the next aisle. I followed closely behind. That's when it happened. The man leaned slightly forward, staring right past me, and whispered, "Evan." My blood went cold. I hadn't said my son's name once inside the store. I hadn't spoken to anyone. Not even Evan's name tag was visible. It was buried under his puffy jacket. I spun toward Evan. He was frozen, eyes wide, like he'd felt something move past his ear. "Mom," he whispered. "How does he know me?" "We're leaving," I said, trying to sound calm. We hurried toward the front of the store. The holiday chaos suddenly felt distant, muffled, like we were underwater. I didn't turn around, couldn't, but I heard footsteps behind us. Not rushed, not stumbling, perfectly measured, like he was matching our pace exactly. When we reached the mall corridor, I forced myself to glance back. He stood just inside the toy store entrance, staring at me without blinking. Then he began walking, steady, deliberate, cutting through crowds without ever taking his eyes off me. "Mommy, he's coming," Evan whimpered. I gripped his hand and practically dragged him toward the exit doors. But as we stepped out into the cold, I noticed something that made my heart fracture open. A second pair of red gloves, pressed against the fogged-over window of my car, slowly sliding across the glass. For a moment I couldn't breathe. The red gloves on my car window moved in strange, slow circles, like the person behind the glass was drawing invisible shapes. Evan hid behind my leg, gripping my coat. I scanned the lot, hundreds of cars, headlights blinking, exhaust clouds drifting. But I didn't see anyone near my vehicle, just those gloves sliding across the fog. I whispered, "Stay right behind me," and approached the car cautiously. My hands shook as I unlocked it. The alarm chirped, echoing too loudly. When I flung the back door open, there was nothing. No broken lock, no footprints in the frost, no sign anyone had touched the car at all, except the smeared prints on every window. I wiped one once. It didn't come off. "Mom, he's over there," Evan whispered. The man in the red coat stood several rows away, staring straight at us. The lot lights overhead flickered, and for a split second his figure stuttered, as if my eyes skipped a frame. I blinked hard, heart racing. I shoved Evan into the back seat and climbed in the driver's side. The man began walking toward us. "Mom, go." I didn't need to hear it twice. I locked the doors, threw the car into reverse, and hit the gas. My tires screeched against the icy pavement. As we drove off, I looked in the rearview mirror. He was standing in the exact center of the lane, not chasing us, just watching. That stillness terrified me more than if he had run. That night, I tried to convince myself I'd misread everything. A strange man, a coincidence, fear playing tricks. But at 2 a.m., when I checked the windows of our house, my denial shattered. Every single pane had red glove prints smeared across it. I paced the living room, phone in hand, debating whether I should call the police again. They'd already brushed me off once after telling them about the mall incident. Not enough evidence, too many holiday reports, probably a misunderstanding. They hadn't seen the glove prints, but I had. I checked each lock 3 times. Evan slept curled on the couch under his blanket, clutching his stuffed fox. I kept the TV low, trying to drown out my panic. Around 3 a.m., he stirred awake. "Mom?" he whispered. "Yeah, sweetheart, I'm right here." He sat up, rubbing his eyes. Someone was whispering. I forced a calm voice. "You were dreaming." He shook his head hard. "No, it was in the hallway." My heart clenched. "What did they say?" He swallowed. "They said, 'I found you.'" A cold wave rolled through me. I grabbed the fireplace poker and moved quietly to the hallway. The air felt different there. Colder, heavier, like someone had opened a window, even though everything was sealed tight. "Who's here?" I shouted. My voice bounced through the house unanswered. Nothing moved. No creaks. No footsteps. But halfway down the hall, I froze. Something was resting against the wall at knee level. I approached slowly, stomach twisting. It was a pair of red leather gloves, folded neatly, placed right outside Evan's bedroom door. My breath hitched. I backed away until my shoulders hit the wall. No broken windows. No busted locks. No signs of entry. But those gloves hadn't been there an hour ago, and I knew, without a doubt, someone had been inside. By the next morning, I'd barely slept. I drove straight to mall security with a sick determination. I needed answers. The head of security, a tired-looking man named Jackson, pulled me into the back office and replayed the footage. At first it looked normal, crowds moving through the aisles, me and Evan walking, stopping, talking. Then I saw him, the man in the red coat. Except, something was wrong. He didn't enter the store, not once, not on any camera. But on every aisle we walked down, his figure appeared behind us, sometimes close, sometimes far, sometimes standing still, sometimes turning his head toward the camera like he knew he was being watched, but never entering, never leaving, Jackson paused the footage when the man suddenly appeared behind me in the action figure aisle. Standing so close it looked like he could have reached out and touched my hair. Jackson swallowed. "Ma'am, I don't know how to explain this." Neither did I. I took Evan home early and didn't leave the house again for days, but the glove prints returned. Every night, sometimes on the outside, sometimes on the inside, and sometimes, God help me, they moved. The last night we stayed there, Evan woke me with shaking hands and whispered, "Mom, he's back." I followed his trembling finger to the hallway. There, in the darkness, stood a tall figure in a red coat. I blinked, and it vanished. That was the night we moved in with my sister, and we never went back. Trust your instincts, especially when something feels wrong before you can explain why. Fear is often the first warning that danger is real, and protecting your loved ones means listening to that inner voice, even when others doubt it.
Growing up in Denver, I always thought Christmas was loud, colorful, and predictable. My parents threw a massive holiday party every year at our family's old mansion, the kind of place that looks like it belongs in a movie about rich people with too many fireplaces. I'm Mia Thompson, 20 years old, a college sophomore who would have rather spent Christmas break sleeping. But tradition's tradition, so every December 25th, I slipped into a nice dress, plastered on a smile, and wandered around pretending I didn't want to disappear into my room. This year, my mom made it masquerade-themed. Guests showed up in sparkly Santa masks, glittery antlers, elf ears, and more red velvet than should be legal. The place smelled like cider, evergreen, and expensive perfume. Music thumped from the ballroom, and laughter echoed off the high ceilings. I tried to enjoy it, drifting between groups, complimenting outfits, sneaking gingerbread cookies when my mom wasn't looking. That's when I first noticed him. A tall man, black suit, tailored perfectly, no mask, no festive anything, not even a hint of holiday spirit. He stood near the back of the room, hands loosely at his sides, staring straight at me with an expression I couldn't read, calm, almost bored, but too focused. At first, I brushed it off, probably someone's date, someone who hated Christmas parties as much as I did. But when I moved across the ballroom to greet my aunt, I felt his eyes still on me. When I talked to friends near the bar, he didn't mingle, he just watched. Never blinking, never smiling, never moving more than a few steps. Something inside me tightened. He wasn't just staring, he was studying me. The longer the night went on, the stranger it felt. Everywhere I went, he seemed to already be there, leaning against a pillar, standing near the drink station, lingering by the poinsettias. He didn't dance, didn't eat, didn't speak. He just moved smoothly through the crowd like he somehow took up no space at all. I tried to lighten the mood by joking with my best friend, Nora. "Hey, do you know the guy in the black suit? The one without a mask?" She frowned. "What guy?" "That one." I pointed, but when I turned, he wasn't there. She gave me a weird look. "Girl, you good? You look pale." I laughed it off, but my pulse ticked faster. I asked a few other guests, my dad's coworkers, our neighbors, even the catering staff. Every answer was the same. I didn't see anyone like that. "No mask? Doesn't ring a bell? Are you sure he's not a friend of yours?" The more they dismissed him, the more unsettled I felt. I knew what I saw, and I knew he was real. He was too detailed, too solid. Not a hallucination, not a trick of the light. Later in the night, my mom called everyone together for pictures near the giant Christmas tree. We posed, we smiled, we laughed. But when someone showed me a group photo on their phone, my stomach dropped. There he was, standing behind me, perfectly centered, hands clasped. And in the next photo, same thing. And the next. Even in shots I times didn't remember posing for asterisk. He was there. Every time, his eyes were on me. By the time the clock hit 11:50 p.m., the mansion felt different, too warm, too crowded, too claustrophobic. I kept spotting the man in the black suit in the corner of my vision, but whenever I turned, he'd be gone. Not walking away, just gone. My dad handed out noisemakers while people gathered for the midnight countdown. The lights flickered just once, probably from the overloaded power. I told myself to relax. 10 minutes and you can hide in your room, Nora teased. I tried to laugh but couldn't shake the dread slithering under my ribs. He keeps showing up in pictures. I whispered. Who? The man. The lights blinked again. Then again. The DJ spoke into the mic. Don't worry, folks, old mansion wiring. People laughed. I didn't. When the countdown finally began, asterisk, 10, 9, 8, asterisk, the lights suddenly cut out entirely. Pitch black. The room exploded with cheers, laughter, drunken yelling. Then, a scream. Sharp, terrified. My scream. Because when the lights flickered back on for a split second, his face was asterisk, inches, asterisk from mine. No smile, no emotion, just wide, impossibly dark eyes and a twisted expression that didn't look human. Then darkness again. I stumbled backward, heart slamming in my throat. Hands reached for me, voices asked if I was okay, but he wasn't there anymore. When the lights finally returned fully, the man had vanished. The crowd moved back, unsure, and murmuring. Nora grabbed my arm. Mia, look. Every doorway in the mansion, every single one, had muddy footprints leading upstairs, leading to the second floor, leading directly toward my bedroom. My breath hitched when I saw the trail, dark, wet, unmistakable footprints. They weren't from boots worn by guests. They were too large, too spaced out. Like someone with a long stride had walked calmly through the mansion while everyone was panicking. Nora whispered, "You're not going up there, right?" "I have to. My room's up there." My voice shook. My stuff. My everything. She grabbed my wrist. "Then I'm coming." We pushed through the murmuring crowd as my parents asked what was going on. I didn't slow down long enough to answer. I reached the bottom of the staircase and stared upward. Every step had a print. Every print pointed upward. None pointed back down. We climbed slowly. My heartbeat pounded in my ears, louder than the music still playing downstairs. Halfway up, Nora whispered, "Does it feel colder to you?" It did. The temperature dropped sharply, enough that I could see my breath. When we reached the second floor landing, the prints continued down the hallway, straight toward my room at the very end. My door was slightly cracked open. "I swear I closed it," I whispered. "You did." Nora's voice was barely audible. We approached carefully. When I nudged the door open, it creaked loudly, too loudly. Everything inside was untouched, except the photos on my bulletin board. Every picture, every candid shot, every childhood photo had been rearranged into a perfect circle around one image, a picture taken at tonight's party, me. And directly behind me in the photo, the man in the black suit. I stepped back, trembling. Something moved behind my closet door, a soft, slow inhale. For a moment, neither of us breathed. My closet door was always open. I kept it that way because I hated dark spaces. But now, it was closed almost completely, just a sliver of shadow showing. I whispered, "Nora, get my dad." She shook her head. "I'm not leaving you." A soft exhale came from behind the door. I tightened my grip on my phone. My thumb hovered over the emergency call button. My voice cracked. "Who's in there?" No answer. I nudged the door with my foot. It slid open an inch, then another. Then, the lights flickered. A tall silhouette filled the narrow opening, and I stumbled back with a scream. But just as quickly as it appeared, it vanished, gone like smoke. I rushed forward, ripping the door open. The closet was empty. No footprints. No disturbed clothing. No sign anyone had been there at all. Nora began crying softly. "Mia, what is happening?" I backed away, shaking so hard my teeth chattered. "I don't know." Just then my dad and 3 security guards stormed in. They tore through the room, the closets, the hallway, nothing. By morning, the footprints downstairs had dried to faint stains. The photos remained rearranged, and security footage from the staircase revealed something that made my parents insist I stay elsewhere for the week. The muddy footprints appeared one by one, as if someone invisible was walking. I never saw the man in the black suit again, but sometimes, when I take pictures with friends, I check every corner of the frame, just in case. Pay attention to the people who make you uneasy, even when no one else notices them. Instinct is often your first warning, and ignoring it can lead you straight into danger. Trust yourself even when others don't. I've lived in Minnesota all my life, and storms never scared me. But the one that hit on December 24th, the night everything changed, felt different from the first gust. I'm Noah Larson, married 3 years, recently moved with my wife, Claire, into a quiet rental house on the edge of a tiny rural town. The realtor said it had history, which usually means old pipes and bad insulation. We didn't care. It was cheap, and we were rebuilding after a rough year. That Christmas Eve, the wind screamed against the siding like it was trying to pry the place apart. Snow piled against the windows so thick we could barely see outside. We were officially trapped. Claire tried to make it fun. Hot cocoa, soft music, holiday candles, but something about the house already felt off. Maybe the way the walls creaked like someone walking upstairs. Maybe the fact the basement door wouldn't stay shut no matter how many times I locked it. Maybe the hum I kept hearing behind the drywall. Around 6, while Claire chopped vegetables for dinner, I went into the living room to grab firewood. I didn't make it 3 steps before freezing in place. A man, a complete stranger, sat at our dining table. He wore an old brown coat, the kind you'd expect to find in a thrift store from the 1952. His skin was pale, almost colorless. His hair thin and swept back like he'd just stepped out of a cold wind. But what made my chest tighten was that he looked settled, like he'd been waiting for us. "Sir," I managed, "you need to leave." He didn't blink, didn't move, just stared at me with the faintest grin, like he was expecting me to sit across from him. My first thought was break in, but the front door was locked, and the snow outside was perfectly smooth, no footprints, no tracks, nothing. Panic hit me all at once. "Claire," I shouted, stepping backward as the stranger's grin widened by an inch too slow. Too deliberate. She rushed in. "What?" Her voice cracked when she saw him. "Noah, what is he doing here?" "I don't know. He wasn't here a minute ago." The stranger's eyes flicked to her, just briefly, then back to me. Not a word, not even a swallow. It was like he didn't breathe. His hands were resting neatly on the table, fingers long and stiff, as if posed. Claire whispered, "Call the police." I fumbled for my phone, but when I tapped the screen, it turned pure white. No apps, no numbers, no buttons, just a glowing blank slate. Claire tried hers, same thing. Even the landline was dead, giving off a low static hiss that vibrated through the receiver. My heartbeat drummed in my ears. "We need to get out," I muttered. Claire checked the front door, still locked from the inside. Deadbolt, secure, no scratches, no damage, no sign someone had forced their way in. "Maybe he came in before the storm," she whispered. "No," I said, shaking my head. "I walked through this room 10 minutes ago. No one was here." The house lights flickered once, twice, and then all at once. Every room plunged into darkness except the dining room, where a single overhead light buzzed faintly. When my eyes adjusted, my stomach dropped. The man was no longer seated. He was standing behind Claire. One hand rested on her shoulder. Fingers splayed like he'd been touching her for a long time. She gasped, spun around, but he didn't step back, didn't act startled or aggressive. He just leaned slightly toward her, his mouth near her ear. "You left the door open last year," he whispered. My blood ran cold. We had never lived in that house before. "What door?" Claire whispered, backing away from him as I pulled her toward me. "We just moved in. We weren't here last year." The man didn't respond. His face went expressionless again, like the little spark of emotion he'd shown had been a mistake. He lowered his hand slowly, deliberately, and returned to the table sitting in the exact position he'd been in before, as if he'd never moved at all. "Sir," I said, forcing strength I didn't feel, "you need to leave. Now." His voice, when it finally came, sounded rough, old, like dry leaves scraping across pavement. "Open. Left open," Claire whispered. What does he mean? But I already felt it, a sinking, nauseating certainty. The basement door, the one that kept swinging open on its own. I grabbed a flashlight, ignoring Claire's desperate, "Noah, don't," and headed for the hallway. The stranger didn't try to stop me. He just watched with that same faint, unsettling smile. The basement door was open again, wide open. Cold air rushed up the stairs in short, uneven bursts, like someone breathing from down below. I shined the light into the darkness. The concrete floor was bare except for a single wet footprint halfway down the stairs. Not mine, not Claire's, not from any shoes in the house. It was from a boot the same shape as the stranger's. My stomach lurched. "Claire," I whispered. He came from down here, but that wasn't the part that terrified me. What scared me was the second footprint, pressed into the drywall halfway down the staircase. As if someone had been standing on the wall, Claire tugged my sleeve. "Noah, "Come back. He's watching us." When I turned, the stranger was closer again, standing at the top of the stairs this time, blocking the hallway light, his pale face tilted slightly. "You left it open," he repeated softly. "You let them in." "Them?" I whispered, throat tight. "Who?" He didn't blink. "Come and see." Every instinct screamed asterisk asterisk, don't go asterisk asterisk. But he stepped aside, clearing the doorway like a host inviting guests to dinner. Claire grabbed my hand, shaking her head hard. "Please, we're leaving. Storm or not, we're leaving this house." She was right, but my legs moved anyway. The stranger followed behind us, his footsteps so silent they felt imagined. Claire clutched my arm as we descended the stairs, the flashlight trembling in my hand. At the bottom, the air grew colder, much colder. My breath formed fog. The basement was empty, just concrete walls, shelves of old tools, and a rusted furnace in the corner. But the walls, I'd never seen them like that. Swollen patches, dark stains that trickled downward like dried tears. I aimed the light at the center of the room. There were footprints, dozens of them circling the floor in uneven patterns. Some old and faded, some fresh and wet. None of them matched each other. They were here, the stranger whispered behind us. Claire spun. "Who?" He stared at the floor. "The ones you left the door open for. We've never lived here before," she cried. He turned his head slowly, too slowly to look at her. "Not you." My skin crawled. "Not you." The words sat heavy. He raised one hand and pointed toward the far wall. My flashlight beam followed. The wall had deep scratches in it, long, curved gouges like someone had scraped at it with nails or claws. I stepped closer and felt a smear of something cold, sticky. "Don't touch that," Claire said, voice breaking. The stranger leaned beside me, his face inches from mine now. "They came and went, and you never knew." I backed up, heart pounding hard enough to hurt. "What happened here?" His grin returned, the same faint, eerie curl of the lips. "Last winter." He paused. "You left the door open." I grabbed Claire's hand. "We're leaving. Now." The stranger didn't move to block us this time. He simply watched, head tilted, as if curious what we'd do next. The moment we reached the top of the stairs, the house shuddered just slightly, like something heavy had knocked against the foundation. The lights flickered, not off this time, but brighter, too bright, like the bulbs were seconds from bursting. Claire yanked on the front door. "Noah, it won't open." I pulled with her. The deadbolt turned. The knob moved, but the door felt fused to the frame, as if the wood had grown around it. Behind us, the stranger's voice drifted softly. "They are already inside." I spun around. "Who? Tell us who." He lifted a finger, pointing past us toward the hallway leading to the bedrooms. We heard it then. Feet, not one pair. Several. Shuffling, dragging, slow, coming closer. Claire cried out. "Noah." The lights died, pitch black, except the dining room light. The stranger stood beneath it, face upward now, arms slightly extended, as if welcoming something into the house. Shadows rose up behind him, moving shapes that stretched along the walls, bending in impossible angles. I grabbed Claire and forced her toward the back door. Miraculously, it opened just barely enough for us to squeeze through into the whipping storm. We ran. Snow stung our faces, wind shoved us sideways, but I didn't stop until the house was a blur behind us. When I looked back, every window glowed white, not with light, with faces, dozens of them, and at the dining room window, the stranger watched us go, hand raised in a slow, deliberate wave. We never returned, and the landlord never asked why. Not every closed door stays closed, and not every place is meant to be lived in. Trust your instincts when something feels wrong, because fear is often your mind recognizing danger before you do. The day after Christmas is my favorite kind of quiet. I'm Sarah Collins, 23, currently juggling online classes, part-time work, and a serious hot chocolate addiction. My family drove out to visit relatives on December 26th, but I stayed home to finish a final project due after break. Honestly, I was relieved. I needed space, just me, leftovers, and a pile of cheesy holiday movies. By midnight, the house felt warm and peaceful. The glow from the Christmas tree lights flickered softly in the living room, and I curled up on the couch with a plate of leftover cookies. Outside, Minnesota wind rattled the windows every few minutes, but inside felt calm, until I heard it, a soft Times crunching Times sound from the living room. Faint, like someone stepping on discarded wrapping paper. I paused the movie and listened harder. Crunch, pause, crunch. At first, I told myself it was the house settling. Old houses groan all the time. But then I remembered something. I had thrown away every piece of wrapping paper earlier that morning, bags tied, trash taken out, nothing left crumpled anywhere. A small chill crept up my spine. I stood up and peeked down the hallway. The living room was dark except for the tree lights, which cast red and green shadows across the floor. And there, right on the hardwood, was a long trail of colorful wrapping paper, not crumpled, not thrown around, laid out perfectly flat, leading directly toward my bedroom door. Each piece looked like someone had stepped on it minutes before, the edges pressed down with strange precision. My phone buzzed in my hand, a notification from my home camera app. Motion detected. Living room. My stomach flipped. Whatever made that noise wasn't the house. I tapped the notification, hands trembling slightly. The app loaded slowly, the spinning wheel taking far too long. When the feed finally appeared, I froze where I stood. The camera showed the living room, my Christmas tree, the couch, the coffee table, and a figure, a tall figure, wrapped completely in colorful holiday paper. Layers of shiny red, green, silver, and gold covered it from head to toe. No face visible, no skin showing, no clothing underneath, just wrapping paper folded sharply at the joints like some kind of human-shaped gift. It stood perfectly still beside the tree, not breathing, not shifting, not even swaying, just there. At first I thought maybe the camera glitched, but the tree lights flickered behind it, casting tiny reflections off the glossy wrapping paper. This wasn't a glitch. My heartbeat throbbed in my ears. "Okay, think," I whispered. "Maybe someone broke in, maybe it's a prank, some idiot trying to be funny." But no one had keys except my family, and the doors were locked. I blinked, literally blinked for less than a second, and the figure was gone. The camera feed now showed only the tree, the couch, the empty floor. No tall paper-wrapped intruder anywhere, but something new had appeared. Fresh, torn scraps of wrapping paper were now scattered across the floor, creating footprints, actual footprints leading toward the hallway, leading straight to my bedroom door. Before I could even process it, something metallic clicked softly at the end of the hall. The doorknob of my bedroom began to turn. I stepped backward instinctively, my breath catching. Something was inside my room, and it had just opened the door I knew I had closed. My first instinct was to run out the front door, but the memory of Minnesota's freezing wind and my lack of shoes made me hesitate. My second instinct, call the police, hit even harder. I dialed 911, but the call didn't connect. Not even a ring. Just a dull beep, then silence. No signal. Even though I'd had full bars minutes before, my bedroom door creaked fully open. I pressed myself against the wall, clutching my phone like a weapon. "Who's in there?" I forced out. "I don't want any trouble, just leave." Something shifted inside the room, a soft rustle, like paper brushing across fabric. I peeked around the corner. The wrapping paper trail stretched inside my room, leading toward the bed. My Christmas lights reflected off more pieces on the carpet, red scraps, gold scraps, glitter-dusted strips. My closet door rattled once, then it slid open just an inch. I stepped backward, heart hammering, but I couldn't tear my eyes away. Slowly, so slowly, a figure leaned out from behind the doorframe. A long arm, wrapped in overlapping strips of peppermint-patterned paper, extended first, then a shoulder, then the outline of a head covered in red foil like a tight helmet. It didn't lunge, didn't run. It simply times watched times me. And then, in a voice muffled beneath the layers, it whispered, "You forgot one." My throat dried. Forgot what? The figure raised one paper-wrapped hand and pointed toward the corner of my room. A small scrap of wrapping paper sat there, barely the size of a sticky note. I must have missed it when cleaning earlier. "You left it," the voice said, clearer this time. "So I came back." I stumbled. "Came back? You've never No. You haven't been here before." The figure tilted its head. "Sarah." Hearing my name in that crackling, paper-muffled voice nearly stopped my heart. It knew me. I bolted down the hallway, nearly slipping on one of the flattened wrapping pieces. My mind raced. Someone breaking in was terrifying enough, but someone wrapped in holiday paper who times knew my name, *, that was something else entirely. I grabbed a broom from the coat closet, the closest thing to a weapon I could find. The house felt colder suddenly, like the temperature had dropped 20 degrees in a minute. My breath fogged in the hallway light. Behind me, the faint rustle of paper grew louder. Crunch, swipe, drag. It was stepping onto the flattened wrapping paper trail, following me. Noah, this isn't happening, I muttered to myself, breath shaky. This is a nightmare. This is just lack of sleep, a stress hallucination. But the heavy footsteps tearing through paper made it painfully real. I ducked into the kitchen and flicked on the overhead light. Bright yellow filled the room, making me feel a tiny bit safer, until the kitchen camera buzzed with a new alert. Motion detected. Kitchen. I looked up at the small camera mounted on the cabinet. Its little red light was blinking, meaning it saw movement. But I was the only one in the kitchen. Then the light blinked faster. My stomach twisted. I turned around. The figure stood at the edge of the kitchen doorway, half of its wrapping torn, revealing pale skin underneath, a sliver of cheek, a hint of jawline white and waxy, like a mannequin. It stepped forward. Slur. Crunch. The wrapping around its arm split open, falling to the floor. The arm beneath wasn't smooth. It was marked, scraped, scratched, and oddly bruised. Stop, I yelled. Broom pointed like a spear. It kept coming. Stop. I swung the broom as hard as I could. The stick hit the figure's shoulder, but instead of stumbling back, it simply tilted its head, like I'd tapped it politely. Then it leaned closer. You threw everything else away, it whispered. But someone has to collect what's left. My entire body trembled. What are you? I whispered. The figure's paper-wrapped hand lifted, and slowly, deliberately, it began unwrapping its face. I stumbled backward as the figure peeled away strips of wrapping paper from its face. Each layer came off with a soft crackle, revealing more pale skin, grayish, thin, stretched too tightly around the bones. The jaw beneath looked wrong, slightly crooked, like it had been wrapped and unwrapped too many times. Don't, I begged. Please don't. It didn't listen. The final sheet of glossy red paper dropped to the floor, and I finally saw its face. Eyes too wide, mouth too small, skin creased with long, faint impressions, rectangles, squares, ribbon lines like it had been times packaged, times and times repackaged, times thousands of times. It stepped closer, its breath cold against my cheek. Every year, it whispered, someone leaves a piece behind. I forced myself to speak. A piece of what? The lights flickered again. The figure leaned in. A piece of me. A chill tore through my spine. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the hallway. A gust of wind burst through the house as the storm battered the windows harder than before. The kitchen lights flickered, then steadied. In that brief moment, the figure's attention shifted just enough. I ran, through the hallway, past the living room, straight for the back door. I didn't look behind me not until I burst into the freezing night air, snow stinging my skin. I sprinted across the yard toward my neighbor's house, slipping and falling twice, but I didn't stop until I hammered on their door like my life depended on it. They let me in, shaking, breathless, barely able to speak. The police found nothing in my home. No footprints, no signs of forced entry, no intruder. Just torn wrapping paper scattered around my bedroom floor. And my Christmas tree? All the lights were unplugged, except one. A single strip of wrapping paper was tied to a lower branch, shaped exactly like a handprint. December has never been just another month for me. I'm Ethan Lawley, 32, a night shift nurse at a small rural hospital tucked between miles of frozen farmland. People think I volunteer for holiday shifts because I'm a workaholic or generous. The truth is uglier. December is the month I lost my sister, Lily. She died during winter break when I was 16 and she was 19. A sudden medical complication, the adults called it. A neat answer, wrapped in silence. My parents barely spoke afterward. Holidays became something we endured, not celebrated. So when December rolls around, I don't stay home. I bury myself in fluorescent hallways and paperwork until the sun rises. This year was no different. The hospital was unusually quiet the night everything started. Snow hammered the parking lot, the kind of storm that makes the world feel hollow. Around 1 a.m., I noticed a cold draft curling through the main corridor. That was strange. Our heating system usually overcompensates, turning every hallway into a sauna. Then the patients began reporting it. A woman crying, one whispered to me, near the old elevator shaft. I forced a laugh. It's the holidays. Everyone hears things when they're tired, but I couldn't shake the unease. The old elevator shaft had been sealed long before I started working here. Patients shouldn't have been near it, and no visitors were allowed after midnight. Around 2:15 a.m., while updating charts, I heard it myself. Soft, shaky, unmistakable sobbing echoing through the hall. And when I looked up, I saw a figure standing next to the sealed shaft. A woman, still, shadowed, crying. I took a step forward, heart pounding hard enough that I felt it in my fingers. The hallway lights flickered overhead, throwing slices of light across the floor. The figure didn't move, didn't react. The crying was barely more than a breath, but it sounded too familiar. "Ma'am?" I called gently. "Are you hurt?" No answer. As I moved closer, the details sharpened in the dim light. A long winter coat, faded green, scuffed brown boots, a posture I knew deep in my bones, slightly hunched, the way Lily used to stand when she was freezing but pretending she wasn't. My throat tightened. No, that's not possible. The figure's head lifted slightly. Before I could reach her, the lights flickered again twice, fast, and when they steadied, she was gone. Only cold air lingered, brushing past me like a draft from an open freezer. Fear crawled up my spine, but so did something else. Curiosity. A need to understand what I'd seen. What I thought I'd seen. I turned and nearly collided with Dr. Jensen, our night physician. "You okay, Ethan?" he asked, squinting at me. "You look pale." "I thought I saw someone." "Night shifts will do that," he said, patting my shoulder before walking off. But I knew what I saw, or at least what it resembled. Her coat, her boots, her posture. The same details I hadn't allowed myself to remember for years. I walked back to the nurse's station, trying to rationalize it. Stress, fatigue, December messing with my head like it always did. But then I heard the crying again coming from the stairwell that led to the abandoned basement unit, and I knew I had to follow. The stairwell door groaned as I pushed it open, the kind of old metal sound that echoes too far. The crying drifted upward from below, soft but steady, pulling me down step by step. The deeper I went, the colder the air became. My breath fogged in front of me despite the building's heating system supposedly pumping through every floor. The basement unit hadn't been used in decades. I only knew it existed because old-timers occasionally mentioned it. The original emergency ward, shut down after a structural collapse. Most staff avoided even talking about it, but the crying led me straight there. When I reached the bottom, the hallway stretched out like a frozen cave. Paint peeled from the walls, and old hospital equipment sat draped in dusty sheets. My flashlight flickered as I stepped inside. Then I saw her, standing at the far end of the hall, facing a room with a half-broken sign. Her shoulders shook as she cried. That same desperate sound I remembered from the night she died. When she called out for help, the nurses never reached in time. "Lily," I whispered before I could stop myself. She turned halfway, just enough that I recognized the outline of her face beneath the shadow. My sister. Older? Younger? No. Exactly as she looked the last time I saw her alive. I stepped toward her, but the lights above sparked violently. When they flickered back on, she was gone again. This time, in her place, a door stood slightly ajar. Room 12B. Inside, a stack of dusty medical files sat on a rusted gurney. One of them had my sister's name on it. My hands shook as I picked up the file. The paper was brittle, the cover yellowed with age. I expected a normal medical chart, something explaining her sudden collapse all those years ago. Instead, I found page after page of inconsistencies, times crossed out, symptoms rewritten, signatures missing. The attending doctor listed on her chart had been fired months before her death for negligence. A note in the margins caught my eye. Complication occurred during transfer unapproved procedure. Transfer? Procedure? None of that matched what my parents had been told. I flipped deeper into the file. A final note read, "Family informed. Natural cause. Do not disclose errors." My stomach dropped. They lied. Everything we were told about Lily's death had been a cover-up written by people who wanted to keep their reputations clean. My sister had been failed, mishandled, and the truth buried in a locked basement. I pressed the file to my chest and leaned against the wall. Breath shaking, anger, grief, disbelief all churned through me at once. "I'm so sorry, Lily," I whispered. "You didn't deserve this." A cold hand brushed my shoulder. I froze. Slowly, I turned. She stood beside me. Her face was pale but calm, her eyes soft, not accusing. For the first time, she looked at peace. The cold around us warmed slightly, just enough to soften my breath. "Thank you," she whispered, though her lips didn't move. The lights flickered again, and she began to fade, her outline dissolving like mist until all that remained was the sound of distant wind. I was alone, holding the truth. Finally, I carried the file back upstairs as if it was something sacred. When I reached the main floor, the warmth returned, the lights stabilized, and the strange drafts vanished completely. It was as if the entire building exhaled. I sat down at the nurse's station, staring at the cover of the file. Lily's name felt heavier now, but in a different way, not as a wound, but as a story finally uncovered. Dr. Jensen approached again. "You disappear on me?" he joked. I looked at him, the words already forming. "I found something downstairs. Something serious." His smile faded. "Downstairs?" "Ethan. That area's, I know, but there are medical files down there that explain how my sister really died." His eyes widened slightly. "Your sister? Ethan, I'm reporting this," I said firmly. "Whatever they hid, it ends now." He didn't argue. Maybe he saw something in my expression. Maybe he already knew more than he ever said. But he nodded. The rest of my shift passed in a strange calm. No crying, no shadows, no flickering lights. The hospital felt normal again, almost too normal after what I'd seen. When I finally stepped outside that morning, the storm had stopped. Snow lay clean and untouched across the field behind the hospital. The sunrise painted everything gold. For the first time in years, December didn't hurt as sharply. I finally understood why she came back. Not to haunt me, but to free me, and maybe free herself too. Grief doesn't end when the truth is buried, only when it is faced. Sometimes the hardest ghosts to confront are the ones created by silence. Healing begins the moment you stop running from what hurt you and start uncovering what really happened. I've taken dozens of holiday trips in my life, but none left a scar as deep as the overnight train through the Northern Passage. My name is *** Mia Harper ***, and until that winter, I thought trains were the safest way to travel during a storm. My sister lived 3 states away, and Christmas with her was supposed to be my break from work, grief, and the cold reality of living alone. The station was nearly empty when I boarded. The storm warnings had scared away most travelers, and only a handful of passengers stepped into the dimly lit car with me. 5. To be exact, 2 older women, a tired-looking young couple, and a man in a heavy parka who never removed his hood. The conductor gave us a simple warning as he clipped our tickets. "Communication lines are fragile tonight. If we get stuck, sit tight, don't wander." I laughed nervously at the time. Wandering wasn't on my holiday to-do list. Around midnight, I sat reading by the weak overhead light when the train screeched so violently I thought we'd hit something. But when I looked outside, all I saw was a forest buried in snow. No announcements followed. No footsteps. No hum of the engine. It felt like the train itself had stopped breathing. After 20 minutes of silence, the young couple went to look for the crew, then the older women. Finally, I got up too. Every compartment was empty, every control booth abandoned. Even the conductor's jacket still hung on its hook as if he'd evaporated mid-step. I remember whispering, "Where did they go?" The hooded man stared out the fogged window and said quietly, "Something's out there." When I pressed my face close to the glass, I could barely make out shapes moving between the dark pine trunks. Not moving ***, standing ***. Dozens of them, evenly spaced like they were positioned on purpose. Their silhouettes were faint, human-shaped but not quite right. Too tall, too still. "Is that the crew?" one of the older women asked, her voice trembling. "No," the hooded man said. "They're not walking, they're watching." Before I could respond, the man in the parka marched down the aisle, muttering, "I'm not waiting to freeze to death in here." He forced open the exterior door and stepped into the knee-deep snow. We watched from inside as he walked a few yards away. His boots left deep prints until they didn't. 1 step, 2 steps, and then nothing. His next footprint never formed. His legs seemed to disappear into the ground as if he'd stepped through a soft patch of snow that swallowed him whole. He didn't even scream. He just vanished. The older woman nearest me let out a choked cry. The rest of us backed away from the doors instinctively. My instinct was shouting for me to run, but there was nowhere to go. The figures between the trees didn't move toward us, but the forest felt tighter, like it was closing in around the train. I swear I saw one of the silhouettes tilt its head, as if listening. That was when the knocks began slow, deliberate taps against the outside walls of the car. Not frantic, not animal, human, purposeful, a pattern. 1 knock, silence, 2 knocks, silence, 3 knocks. Everyone back to the warmest car, I whispered. Now, we barricaded ourselves inside the central cabin, shivering not from cold, but from the knowing. Whatever was outside wanted us inside together. We shut the sliding doors, locked them with whatever we could jam against the handles, suitcases, broken seat frames, even the metal service cart. The train car was warmer than the others thanks to a working overhead heater, but the cold still seeped in through the walls like fingers searching for skin. The knocks continued, sometimes from the walls, sometimes the roof, sometimes from beneath the floor. Every sound made us flinch. The young couple whispered prayers. The older women clutched each other. I kept checking the temperature display, watching it drop degree by degree. "Why aren't they breaking in?" one woman whispered. "Maybe they don't need to," the hooded man replied. "Maybe they're waiting." "For what?" I asked. He shook his head. "For one of us to step outside, like he did." None of us spoke after that. Around 2:30 a.m., the knocks shifted from slow taps to what sounded like dragging, like something massive, scraping along the exterior metal. The roof creaked as if weight pressed down on it. Snow or something else, we couldn't tell. I checked my phone for the 10th time. No signal, no emergency line, just a blank screen that wouldn't even show the time. When the scraping finally stopped, the silence felt even worse. The kind of silence that presses against your eardrums until you're sure they'll burst. The hooded man walked to a window, hesitant, wiping away frost with his sleeve. He inhaled sharply. "They're closer now." I didn't look. I couldn't. I just sat there clutching the edge of my seat, trying to stay awake as the cold sank deeper into my bones. At 3 a.m., the lights flickered. I whispered, "Please don't go out." But instead, they turned on. All at once, the lights flickered again, steadier this time, warming the car with that familiar fluorescent hum. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Then, without any warning, the train lurched forward. We were thrown against our seats, the metal barricades rattling as the wheels screeched to life. The heater clicked louder. The world outside blurred into streaks of white again as we picked up speed. The young woman whispered, "Who's driving it?" We all knew the answer. No one. I finally gathered the courage to look out the window. The figures were still visible, but they were retreating, not walking, gliding backward, their shapes fading between the trees as the forest pulled away from us. It was like watching shadows dissolve. One of them lifted a hand, slow and deliberate, almost like a farewell, or a warning. Within minutes, the forest cleared, the snow thinned, and dawn began to break in faint pink lines across the sky. The train slowed as we approached the next station, the brakes squealing normally this time. When the doors opened, uniformed authorities rushed aboard, asking questions, demanding details. We tried to explain. We told them about the crew disappearing, the man swallowed by the snow, the figures in the trees, the knocks. Their expressions hardened with disbelief. Finally, one officer said, "The train never stopped. The storm made you panic. There's no missing crew, no missing passenger." But they never found the conductor's jacket, or the man in the parka, or any trace of footprints outside. They dismissed us as hysterical, but I knew better. When I got home that night, I expected nightmares. Instead, I found an envelope in my mailbox. Inside was a train ticket, same route, same date, same seat number. Every December since, another arrives. I've never gone back. You'd think time weakens memories like these, but December brings everything back sharper. I moved cities, changed jobs, even switched apartments, trying to outrun the feeling that something from that forest still knew my name. The tickets keep coming, plain envelopes. No return address. Always arriving exactly a year after the night on the train. At first I tore them up. Then I started saving them. A drawer full now, each one identical. The investigators from that year eventually stopped calling. The other passengers scattered to different states. One of the older women moved in with her daughter and refuses to speak about that night. The young couple divorced. I heard the hooded man relocated to Florida, as far from snow as he could get. But me? I'm stuck with the memory of those silent figures standing between the trees, as if waiting for something unfinished. Last December, I found the ticket taped to my front door instead of in my mailbox. That was the moment I realized these weren't invitations. They were reminders. I still don't understand what happened, whether it was something supernatural, psychological, or something hidden in that forest that ordinary explanations can't touch. But the world feels different to me now. Thinner. As if certain nights open cracks in reality. And we just happened to pass through one. This year's ticket arrived yesterday. Same date, same time, same route. I'm not going. But part of me wonders what would happen if I did. Would the train stop for me again? Would the forest still be watching? Would the crew finally be there? Or would I join the missing? I don't know the answer, and I don't want to find out. Some mysteries in life aren't meant to be solved, only respected. When something warns you to stay away, don't go searching for the truth you can't return from. Curiosity can be powerful, but survival requires knowing when to stop looking back.